Welcome to Conversations with Ann Elizabeth, the podcast inspired by my book, I'm a Registered Dietitian, Now What?, where I have the absolute joy to sit back, relax, and have a conversation about nutrition with a variety of people who share their personal story of passion and purpose, especially registered dietitians. Today's conversation is with Lisa Andrews, a registered dietitian from Ohio who has worked in the clinical setting, started her own business, and has an awesome Food Pun t-shirt line. Lisa and I connected through social media, of course, from either the love of food puns or the love of our tortie cats. So I knew that we had a connection from the start. She has always had a passion for health as she was an athlete growing up, and she also had a father who had diabetes. She worked an extensive career with the VA hospital as a clinical dietitian. She was an adjunct instructor and currently is an entrepreneur in her own practice doing consulting and counseling. She is also selling an awesome line of Food Pun merchandise, which you definitely need to go check out on her website. Please enjoy my conversation with Lisa. I know we've connected a lot on just social media with our crazy cat lady antics, and
yes.
I was just looking at your all your merchandise too, and I love your new cherry shirts. I think I'm gonna have to order that.
Thanks.
But I'm kind of a cherry person, but
nice.
I just kind of wanted, I wanted to connect with you and get to know you a little better and kind of take me back. When did you get started or interested in this wonderful world of dietetics?
So I'm an old bird. I've been around for a while.
You are not.
Well, I've been, it's weird. I've been a dietitian almost 30 years now, which is kind of weird to think about because that's, over half my life. Is that half my life? Yeah, more than half. Yeah, like more than half my life.
It has to be more than half your life. Yeah.
Yeah. How old am I now? Anyway. And so I guess I'll get interested. I was always that kid that would come home from school after learning about lung disease or heart disease or whatever and like beg my parents to quit smoking. And so I was always really interested in health, and I was always really active. And I'm Italian by nature, so I came from a food family. And my dad had diabetes, and so that was always kind of interesting to me why he couldn't eat the same things all the time, or why he had to kind of watch how much cake he ate or all those sorts of things. So, I don't know, nutrition just seemed to be a good fit for me. I was really interested in science, and I hated chemistry in high school, but then I really understood it in college and really loved it. And so that's how I ended up in the field.
That's awesome. So you were young, kind of. You had an interest earlier in your life, and then when you were kind of getting to that point where you were making decisions, was it easy to kind of be like, hey, I'm going to go be a dietitian, or did you look at some other health careers?
So the only other health career that I kind of considered was physical therapy. So I was kind of a high school jock. I mean, I ran track and I played basketball when I was younger, and I was always pretty active climbing trees and just being outside. So that piece of it, kind of being in sports, kind of interested me. And I don't remember why I didn't go into physical therapy, but I think my guidance counselor kind of told me, it was like, you're smart, but you're more of a hard worker than smart. And I was like, all right, that's a nice way to say I probably won't make it in that field, So, yeah, I know it's kind of a sexist thing to say, but at the same time, it was like, he's probably right. I don't know if I could have hacked some of the science. Who knows? Who knows? Back then, I think it was just less common for women to go into different fields that were probably more male dominated, like medicine or physical therapy or whatever. Yeah.
I could see that. And it's funny. The only physical therapists I know as an adult are all women.
I know. Isn't that weird? That's true. Weird. I mean, most of the people that I know that are in physical therapy are women too. Yeah. That's kind of strange.
Interesting. Yeah, that is interesting. Well, he was wrong. So
he was wrong. I could have hacked it. Whatever.
You totally could have hacked it for sure.
Maybe.
So where did you end up going to school then for nutrition?
So I went to am from Youngstown, Ohio originally, and my parents didn't have a lot of money. We had 5 kids, and it was like, okay, you're going to Youngstown or you're taking out a lot of loans. And I'm like, okay. So my first couple quarters of school, because we were on quarters at the time, were really hard because I was really close with my little gaggle of buddies from high school, and they all went to, big name party schools. They went to Ohio U and Ohio State and Kent State, and they were all still in Ohio, but that was really hard for me. And so I started looking into going away, like to Bowling Green or wherever. And then I ended up getting a scholarship at Youngstown and stayed. So I figured, I'll do my undergrad here, and when it's time for my internship, then that's when I'm going to leave the nest. So that's where I did my undergrad, and then I ended up in Cincinnati for my dietetic internship.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I'm a penguin. That's our mascot.
Well, and yeah, that's hard when you're trying to when all your friends are doing all this kind of stuff. You're like, well, I guess money. And ultimately you made probably the best decision when it came to financial. Right.
Well, and the other thing that was interesting is as I got, a little bit more involved with local dietetics and state dietetics, I realized that my university actually came out and represented. I mean, they were, doing some pretty cool research, and, people in Ohio knew where Youngstown was, because I always kind of had this assumption that, nobody knows where I'm from. This is a really tiny school. Nobody's ever heard of it. And then, I would go to the state meeting, and some of the people would be presenting, or they remembered some of the professors I had when I was younger. So it was really kind of a neat experience to look back and be like, boy, that was really stupid. I really kind of dissed my hometown, and, it got me where I am. And so that's all that really mattered, So I try to think about that with my kids as my older one's getting close to graduating high school, and she really doesn't want to live here. And I say, well, we'll see what happens. And if you go away, great. And if you don't, that's okay too. So we'll see.
It's hard to see, like you said, it's hard to kind of see foreshadowing of what's going to happen post college. Right. You only kind of see what's right in front of you, but you can honestly say everything really worked out great after the fact.
Yeah, I was lucky.
That's good. So so now they had a nutrition, obviously they had a nutrition concentration there.
They did. Yeah. We had a degree in applied science and dietetics, and we were, accredited by, at the time it was the ADA, but, accredited in the whole 9 yards. So it was copacetic. It was fine.
It worked. Did you do your?
It worked.
Did you do your? It worked. Did you do your? Was there an internship available there as well?
They did. They had what was called a CUP program, so it was coordinated undergraduate program. And at the time, I think that was just sort of coming out as an internship option to do 2 years of school, and then you basically finished school and your internship. You did your internship while you were still in school. So you were done in 4 years. So, that was kind of a bonus to do it that way, but I didn't want to do it that way because, again, I was I was ready to leave. And so because I didn't have the opportunity to leave then, I thought when I do my internship, that's when I'll go.
So then so you didn't stay there. Did you
right.
Go pick the farthest place you possibly could find?
Well, it was
away
funny.
From Ohio?
I wasn't that adventurous. I was,
Okay.
So there was a friend of mine. It was my sister's friend did her internship in Cincinnati. And my thought was, well, you know what? If they picked Trisha, then maybe they would pick me because I'm from Youngstown, and so.
Oh yeah.
So it just kind of made sense. So I applied to, I think, Pittsburgh, which was within an hour. I mean, I was kind of a homebody. I applied to one in Cleveland, and then my top 3 choices were in Cincinnati, and I got my first choice. So that was cool.
And that's awesome. And what was the name of that dietetic internship program?
Good Samaritan Hospital.
Good Samaritan. Was that clinical focused then?
It was kind of, what do I want to say? Not catch all, but it was what I'm looking for. Yeah, I mean, it was clinical focused, but we also, met all the requirements. Yeah. It was a smorgasbord of nutrition. You know, we had a little community, we had a little bit in pediatrics, we had, probably more of a clinical focus, but we also had food service and community wrapped in that too.
Very good. So you made it through the internship. You passed your test. Did you did you take your test on a computer or was it paper?
Oh gosh, what was it? I'm trying to think. I want to say it was computerized, but we didn't get our results. We got our results in paper.
Right away.
Like we didn't find out for like 6 weeks. Gosh, was it paper?
Afterward.
It was honestly, it was so long ago. I don't remember. Good Lord, check my B12 level.
It's okay. I mean, it's not like you think about these things every day. I was just
but that's
telling
so funny that I don't remember.
I was just telling my 21-year-old assistant, she was talking about internships. And I'm like, yeah, I remember when I got my acceptance letter, I had to wait for the FedEx guy to come and I had to stay home and wait for to get the letter because there wasn't any matching online.
Yeah. Isn't that wild?
It is. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. We've come so far.
We have. Thank goodness.
Yeah, definitely. Big time.
So what was the first professional job that you had out of your internship?
So my first job was at the VA Medical Center, and I actually stayed there way too long, but I was there. I started part-time. I'm not kidding. I was there for 23 and a half years. So when I left, it was like a retirement.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I was there for a really long time. And so the weird progression of my career was that I started there like in 1990. I started there part-time, and then, you know, it's a female dominated field. Everybody started getting pregnant. And so I eventually became full-time within like 6 months of being there. And then, I think I worked full-time for about 6 or 7 years. And then I went back to graduate school after I was engaged, and then my engagement broke off, and I was like, well, okay, now what do I do with my life? And so I thought, okay, perfect time. I'll go to graduate school.
Go back to school. Yeah.
Go back to school because, you know, no ties, whatever, no boyfriend, you know, I'm dumped. I'm good. Okay, let's go. So, so I did my master's degree, and when I was done, I was really itching to do something different. So, I ended up going part-time again at the VA, and then I took a part-time job as a community dietitian at like a nonprofit agency. So I worked clinical 3 days a week, and then I did this nonprofit 2 days a week.
Wow. That was a good mix. A good mix of things, though.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I remember taking a pay cut and thinking, okay, you know, it's a pay cut, but the diversity of work was really what I was looking for. And so I was willing to, you know, take the pay cut and be okay with it, which was fine. And then after graduate school, I was asked to be an adjunct. So I was an adjunct instructor on and off for the University of Cincinnati for almost 20 years. So I really enjoyed teaching. And so I really, after my master's, the world just kind of opened up, and I really just started picking up, you know, part-time jobs here and there just to make my skill set more diverse.
That's interesting about the adjunct. And I think I would love for you to talk about that a little bit more. Kind of maybe what is an adjunct? What kind of classes do you teach? How does that happen? Yeah.
Well, so to be, to teach at the university level, you have to have at least a master's degree. I mean, they usually prefer that you have a PhD, but most of your adjunct instructors, I would think, have a master's degree, because if they're PhD prepared, then they're usually going to be a full-on professor. But it's really kind of just picking up a class, you know, when like they would just periodically say, hey, you know, which classes are you comfortable teaching? Or we need somebody to teach sports nutrition, or I need somebody to teach lifestyle nutrition, or whatever it was. And so I just kind of started teaching. And the kooky thing is that some of the people that were my students 20 years ago are colleagues of mine now. And actually people that I taught just 5 years ago are colleagues of mine. So I love, being able to see people that I taught way back when, they're in the profession and they're thriving. And it's just so cool to think that, I was part of their weird little piece of education. So yeah.
I bet you are a great teacher. I bet you're super fun to have as a teacher.
Yeah, it's kind of like a little nutrition and a little stand-up comedy. That's how I kind of look at it. It's a little scary. But the downside of adjuncting is, the pay isn't great. You don't really get paid for all the time you put into developing the class. But if you end up teaching the class, a couple times over, then it makes it worth it, and then just having the interaction with the students is really fun to be a mentor.
That is fun. So I did adjunct for a while, but basically what I got was, here's the textbook, you figure it out. Is that kind of how was that for you too?
Yes. Yeah. I would say.
So that first class is kind of like, whoa, this is interesting.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I would say the only exception that I had with that was a colleague of mine who was like my mentor when I was in graduate school, and I'm still in touch with her now. She taught like a nutrition for nurses course, and there was like 160 students or something outrageous. And she was really desperate to have somebody teach it. And she was like, I'll give you all my materials. So that was awesome. But like just the management of that many people. I mean, I had a teacher's assistant, but like knowing, I didn't know half those people. It was almost, it was impossible. So I really kind of prefer the smaller classes, like 50 or less is doable. I at least would remember people's names, but 160, good Lord, there's like 4 people with the exact same last name, So that was a challenge. That was definitely a challenge, but it was fun.
That's a lot. Now, are you still doing that currently then?
No, I think the last class that I taught was probably like 2 years ago. And part of it was just the timing of the class was when my kids were coming home from school. So the class was at 2 in the afternoon and it would end at 3:30. And so I would have to, my older one would get home and I'd have her text me. And if she wouldn't text me, I would panic, so it just got to be too much to kind of juggle with, my small business and then my kids getting older.
Sure. So did you work part-time? Did you continue working part-time at the VA then, as well as doing adjunct? Did you kind of balance that and do the community, or how did that kind of all shift?
So I think at one point I was doing all 3, which was crazy. Because what's weird is this is just like the story of my life. I think I've been like this since I was 12, like, oh, I'm going to volunteer for this. Hey, I'm going to volunteer for this. And, I think when I was expecting my first daughter, it was like 2002 or 3, I was part-time at the VA, 3 days a week. I was this community agency 2 days. And then I was teaching like 2 nights a week or something crazy. Like, what was I doing?
Wow.
I don't know. So at some point, something just had to break. So once we started a family, I went down to part-time at the VA, and I think I took a little break in adjuncting, but then I would pick up a class here and there when it was, once my kids kind of got to the age that they were in like daycare and whatnot, then I started picking up a class again. So I love to teach.
That's really cool. That's neat.
Yeah, it's fun.
And that's probably like, it probably worked a little bit better, even not that when your kids were older, but as they were smaller, maybe it worked a little bit better with your schedule.
Yeah, definitely. Because they had like more regular care. It's interesting because my 2 sisters have more kids than me, but they were stay-at-home moms until their kids were probably like 10 or 11. And then they started going back to work. And I did the exact opposite. I worked when they were really little and snotty and you know what I mean? Like when they were more likely to get sick and whatnot. I was really working. And then, it just kind of hit me when they were starting to get a little bit older that I just really needed to be around more. So that's when I kind of started consulting more when they started getting older. I finally left the VA about 5 years ago, and I was about 6 years into my business. So I was doing my business on the side. I've been in it about 11 years now, and I finally left the hospital about 5 years ago.
So tell me about, well, first of all, tell me kind of your feelings on working. The VA is kind of a very unique role for a dietitian. And I think a lot of people kind of like you do stay in that position for a very long time.
Yeah.
So what was your role with the VA?
So I started in cardiac care. I started like as a, med surg floor dietitian. And then probably within a year, I moved into the ICU. And so I was like the intensive care queen literally for 20 years. So, I mean, the weird thing to think about now is just how used to seeing really, really super sick people I became. I remember when I was in my internship, there was a really young patient that was in like some crazy plane crash. And it was the first person I'd ever seen on a ventilator. And I mean, I had to leave the room. I cried. I mean, I'm like the biggest sap. I cry over everything. It's terrible. So, like seeing somebody that young and that critically ill, I couldn't handle it. And so to work in that environment for so long and just, kind of build up the guts to be able to talk to the doctors about nutrition support and harass the nurses about feeding people. I mean, it just became so rote. I mean, I got really comfortable with it. And it's weird that was what I was in because I loved education, but it really turned more into like physician education, like education of the doctors, education of the medical students, and then also mentoring interns. So the VA, I mean, I think part of the reason they stay is the benefits are amazing. I mean, you get, a president dies and you get the day off, I remember, and that's terrible to say, but I remember like when, oh my gosh, like I'm so old. I remember when Nixon died. I mean, other people probably do too, but when Nixon died, I literally said, ding dong, Nixon's dead. Lisa gets to stay in bed. So, you'd have like all kinds of holidays. So that was cool. The pay was much better than, private hospitals. But then the downside is it's older adults. It's primarily men. You do see some women in that hospital setting, but, for me, like I was really passionate about what I did. And then I just sort of reached this burnout level that I just couldn't do it anymore. So it was weird because a lot of the people I'd started working with moved around. So they would do acute care for a while and then they would switch to the clinic for a while, or then they would go to home-based primary care. So there was ways to move around, but I just never did. And I don't know why I never did. So who knows? I think because I was doing so much other stuff on the side that gave me enough diversity that I didn't care. But then, I don't know. At some point I just reached this burnout. I think it was like, I can almost remember it was like a 90-year-old patient on TPN for 4 months. And I was like, what are we doing to this person? Why are we doing this? Yeah. And it was just the ethical stuff. Bad. Yeah. It just really hit me. So yeah, it was just time to go.
Well, and I think ICU that's a tough area to be in regardless, and clinical is tough. So I think you do kind of hit a burnout at some point when that's what you do day in and day out. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was a fun
TPN
job.
4 months.
Yes, TPN 4 months. So, and then I would always be like the thorn that would want to do an ethics consult. But then I knew if I did that, then that everybody would be pissed off at me. Like all the surgeons that worked on this person for months and months and months. And everybody just tiptoed around, well, we know this person's dying, but we just don't want to tell the family. And I just couldn't, and I know it wasn't up to me, but it was just too hard to stomach anymore. I was like, this is pointless. Like, why am I writing these notes on this person? Why am I, why have we not let this person die with dignity? And that was really hard for me. So I just kind of had it,
And I think that's a great point to make, that I think in any type of clinical setting, I think that's a struggle with physicians and just all the different entities. And then you feel a certain way. And when you can't ever express it or no one listens to you, it's kind of like, okay, well, I think I need to part ways.
Right. Yeah.
Well, and I think that's awesome that you kind of were finding things on the side, though, to keep you kind of staying to want to be a dietitian.
Right. Yeah. And I was kind of lucky to be able to find different things where I was still making up a little bit of income here and there. It was, I had the VA as kind of an anchor. And then I was able to just kind of find some other stuff just to keep up some different skills. And I did do some other stuff at the VA. I mean, I worked, I used to teach weight loss classes, and I enjoyed that because, again, it was like teaching and it wasn't so acute. And I got to know the patients while they're alive versus being on a big blue machine. You know what I mean? So that was kind of nice, to have sort of a steady group of people to work with.
And so while you're at the VA, you kind of started doing your side hustle. So talk to me how that kind of started, and what did you want to start doing as your own business?
Yeah, so that kind of started on a whim. I ran into a colleague that I had known from the Nutrition Council, which was the community agency, and we just started talking about possibly starting a private practice. We knew there weren't a lot of dietitians in private practice in the area, and we just sort of started talking about, well, what would that look like? What would our patient population be? All those sorts of things. So she was working she was kind of doing similar work where she was working part-time in a children's hospital and I was part-time in an adult hospital. So she was going to see kids or families, and then I was going to see adults, and then also offer sort of some corporate wellness types of lectures and cooking demos and that sort of thing. Kind of like the work that we both used to do at the agency that we knew of. So not as competition, because the agency ended up doing more children's related-ish stuff on like obesity treatment and whatnot. So it was kind of different for us to be doing more corporate related stuff. So that's kind of where we started that.
Interesting. That's really cool. And so how did it evolve for you kind of into what you're doing now?
It's always evolving.
That's good.
Yeah. I really like the variety of stuff. So I ended up buying her out after about 5 years because I really wanted a more dynamic website. I really enjoy writing. And so she and I would kind of take turns. We had like 4 little sections on our webpage, like Nutritious Nibbles was always a recipe, and Sound Off was a rant about something, and Quick Bites was like a research article. So we had all these things that were related to eating and biting and whatever because of the name of the site. And it's really kind of evolved into, I've had different office spaces in different places. Like I rented space initially from a pretty well-known physician in the area, and that was really just through networking. Like, one of my daughters is from Guatemala, and I was at this Guatemalan event, and there was a woman that I knew from the VA because she trained there. Like the VA, if nothing else, it's a training HubSpot for doctors. So a lot of the doctors that knew me in the hospital now are in private practice. So they refer their patients to me. So that was actually, and I never thought I would be in private practice, but that was actually something that was really helpful after I left. So I see some clients, like I see some medical nutrition therapy clients. I tried insurance for a year. It was a nightmare. I don't know if I just did. I mean, I don't think not that I didn't do it right, but I feel like I just didn't, I should have had a biller or at least, I don't know. Like I felt like my patients didn't have skin in the game. They would call at the last minute, cancel, or they would no show, or I would code something wrong and then I wouldn't get paid. So I thought, I'm not going to do this. I was getting paid without the insurance piece. Fine. And I felt like obligated to do insurance because I do believe in it, but it just didn't work for my business model, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So I forget your question now.
Oh, no. So you're doing some counseling, and then like today you're at a health fair. So you do some other like community stuff too.
Yeah, I really love, I love talking to people. So like the one-on-one stuff I like, but I probably get more of my energy working with a group. So I do like lunch and learns. I like to do cooking demos. Like this year I connected with our Civic Garden Center, and they have these little hub gardens in different neighborhoods. And so I actually show up, and the gardeners tell me ahead of time what's going to be in the garden. And then I make up a recipe, and then I go cook it. And then I talk about the health benefits of it while I'm cooking it. And that's just really fun. So I've been doing that. I started writing a couple years ago for food and health communications with Judy Doherty. She's, I think she's a health educator, but she's this artist and a photographer, and she's got this newsletter that she's had for years. And so I do article reviews and then just some short blogging types of articles for her. So I'm doing a little bit of everything, and it's really kind of fun.
That's fair. And it works with your personal life too, and with your family.
Most of the time. I mean, my family will tell you I'm in front of my computer way too much, but part of that is just social media. I get sucked in. Into like, hey, what's going on Instagram? Hey, maybe I should post another shirt. Maybe let's see what's happening on Facebook. So yeah, I think part of it's just I'm on social media way too much. It's not good.
I think the garden thing sounds really fun. That would be a blast.
Well, and it's just cool for me because I'm not a gardener. So I tell them straight up, look, you're going to have to tell me which thing is cabbage and which one is spinach, and then what kind of chard this is. Because I don't know. I mean, I just go to the grocery store like most people, and it's kind of embarrassing, but they're like, no, we'd love to teach you, and you're teaching us stuff. And so it's just really nice collaboration. It's always good to learn from other people too, because there is so many different types of plants. We think kale is kale, but that's not necessarily true. Right. Yeah. It's like, oh, it's curly kale. No, that's Dutch kale. No, this is this kale. Right. Hey, who knew? Who knew?
So tell me about your merchandise. How did you get, and if no one follows you, which I will put all the links in the show notes, but you've got some fun merchandise, and I would love to know kind of the story behind that.
Well, so being in food, I've always been a word nerd. And I was at Old Navy one day, and there was this t-shirt, and it said breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And it was a donut, a taco, and a piece of pizza. And I'm not like food militant by any means. I mean, I fully admit I am an equal opportunity eater. If I'm at the Oktoberfest here, I will probably have a brat and a beer. And you know what I mean? I'm just not on that spectrum of, oh my gosh, I have to eat only whatever. And hopefully most dietitians are like, whatever we are. Yeah. I'm not going to judge. So, but when I saw that, I don't know what it was. It just hit this nerve. I just thought, well, that's not even that. I mean, it's cute, but I don't want people thinking that that's okay to eat all the time. And, and for whatever reason, I just started thinking up these silly puns. And the first one that hit my brain was, peas remain seated, because I'd seen remain calm and that kind of thing. And, so I don't know, they just started generating in my head. And, I had met somebody that had a line of t-shirts, and he was a graphic designer. And so I just wanted to pick his brain. I was like, how does this work? Like, how do you start a line of t-shirts? And, he was gracious enough to do a couple designs for me. He was like, oh, these are really funny. And so I would just text him and say, Chris, what do you think of this is the worst with a frowning sausage, and he would tell me, oh, that one has legs, or that really doesn't, I don't really get that one. Or if you have to explain it too much, it's not funny. So that's kind of how it started. So, I think I printed up 30 shirts to start, and I sent them to just friends that get my sense of humor. just mostly dietitians, and then I don't know, a couple of my nurse friends and my family members, and just people that I thought would enjoy wearing them, and just kind of feel them out and see what they thought of them.
That's fun. And you have note cards and bags and all kinds of fun stuff.
Well, yes and no.
Yes and no.
Well, I do, but so the interesting thing is that what would happen is, I would print up so many shirts, and I got lucky. I basically was like this door-to-door salesperson. I started going to small markets and asking people if they would carry them. So one store downtown near a really popular outdoor giant Finley, it's called Finley Market. It's one of the oldest markets in the U.S. So there was a food store across the street from them, and they were willing to carry them. So I had like a physical place to bring them. But then if somebody wanted one, I would have to run down there and grab it. You know what I mean? So it just became this logistical nightmare of like, how much do I keep on inventory? How many do I keep in a store? And so I started doing print on demand. So there's pros and cons. The pro is that, you can put your design on anything. So I can make mugs and totes and onesies and aprons and, boys shirts and girl shirts and lady shirts and tank tops and sweatshirts and the whole 9 yards. But then the downside is I feel like my site looks really, it's like it's too crowded. You know what I mean? So at some point I have to weed. I have to weed some stuff out.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So, but on the upside, I had too many ideas in my head, and I can't print everything up. So I have like an entire arsenal of every design that I've made, but I don't have them all physically printed up unless I feel like, I'm noticing that people are ordering this one more online. I guess it's time to go ahead and print it up and see if I could sell it.
Do you work with like a local company then? Is that who prints on demand for you, or how did you pick a company to do that for you?
So I asked around about just printing companies in Cincinnati. So I use so what I do now is I have my shirts in about 4 little, just small markets. Most of them are like the garden gift shop. Like most of them are just small gift shops. And then, so I have like a batch of them printed. So I'll have like one design printed, and because it's summer, I have multiple designs right now because I'm going to be doing farmers markets. So I'll go to a farmer's market, you pay a booth fee, you hang out for about 5 hours, and, I just stand there and sell them just like any other vendor. So I have those printed locally, and then the ones that are print on demand get printed out of North Carolina, and then those get it depends. Some of them I get shipped to me. If I want a gift for somebody, but I don't want to print up an entire thing, I'll print one up, I'll have it shipped to me, and then I can tag it, and then I can send it out. And then some people just order them. And if you ordered one and you were giving it to somebody as a gift, I'd have it shipped to you, but then I would ship you a tag so that you could put the tag on it, and then the person knows where it's from.
Oh, very cool. Well, good to know. Yeah. That's good to know, because I was just thinking, I'm like, well, this could be all my Christmas gifts this year.
Oh, hey. Love to hear that.
It's so dietitian appropriate. So I'm like, well, that is going to work just fantastically.
Yeah.
So yes, I will link that in the show notes so people can go check it out as well, because I love your designs.
Thank you.
So I also want you to share with me, you said previous in the conversation about volunteering and saying yes. And this year you are the president of the Ohio Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. So share with me your road in the volunteer spectrum of dietetics.
Yeah. So I guess when I was in graduate school, I got involved kind of at the academy level as I was in Nutrition Educators of Health Professionals, and I was their editor for their newsletter at the time. And then I started getting a little bit more involved in our local association. So I was on a committee called Hunger Panel that worked with reducing food insecurity, which I'm really passionate about. And then, I don't know, I just kind of started taking on different roles in the local level, and then started getting a little bit more involved in the state level. So I was the media chair or the media rep for both the local level and the state level. And then I was the CPI, the chair on professional issues, about 4 years ago. And then somebody reached out and said, hey, would you consider running as president? Because, if you serve on the board, you can only be president within like a 5-year window. And so that was kind of my window. And I was like, you know what? It's like, it's now or never. And I was really flattered to be offered to be the leader. And I really just figured, I have a lot of connections, whether they're in industry or, through even through social media or just going to different conferences. I try to network with people and find out what people do and how we can help each other. So I thought it would be a great way to just combine all of that and kind of elevate the profession, because I just feel like there's, sometimes there's trolling that happens and some people are negative. And I was like, I don't want to do that. This is my profession. I don't want to hear people bashing other dietitians. I don't think that's cool. So I just figured it would be a really good way to just try to elevate our profession more.
How's it going so far? Going well?
It's overwhelming. I mean, just the number of emails that come across my desk with, hey, can you be a reviewer for this? And we need to approve the budget for this. And even like small stuff that you don't think would be a big deal, it gets into like, oh, we need to make sure that we're renewing our WebEx thing. Do we want to continue with WebEx? Or, hey, we're deciding on, I don't know, we're deciding on which student to pick for this or that. What do you think of this person? So all that stuff is all of a sudden it's like, oh, this is very real and it's very in my face. But I'm enjoying it. I mean, I'm not agreeing to everything, but I'm not leaving holes. So it's like, if I can't do it, I'm going to reach out to somebody and say, this is a perfect person for you. I don't need to do everything.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, do you find in your state that it's hard to get people to volunteer for those positions as in the affiliate and even in the local kind of groups?
Sometimes. I think that a lot of times the same people end up getting recycled, so it's like, oh, you were chair and now you're going to be the secretary. And then in 2 years, you'll be the treasurer. And I want to bring in new people, because new people have new ideas and new blood and new energy. And so I want to I kind of want to share the love, So I always told my students, and I'm sure you've told them this too when you were an adjunct, is never burn any bridges, because the world is really small and, you might be drowning somewhere and that person needs to save you, So in Cincinnati, at least, everybody knows everybody. And especially in the dietetics profession, we probably all run across each other. And I always look at it that way with my private practice. If somebody calls me and says, hey, can you help me with, I have my child needs some weight management, or I have insulin dependent diabetes. And if I don't work with those two conditions, I don't want to leave the person hanging. I'm going to refer them to another dietitian. I'll be like, I'm not the best fit for this, but this person is, so I think that's the best way to do it is, we're a chain of people and you don't want to have a broken link.
Right. That's a very good point. And that's why I think like volunteering with different organizations or reaching out and just connecting people and trying to get new blood into those situations is the way to keep our profession kind of advancing. Right.
Yeah. And I think that's so important, because I don't know. I remember being in private practice and hearing somebody else was in private practice, and I would have this little, oh no, they're better than me, or they're doing this or that. And I'd be like, who cares? Let their freak flag fly, let them do their thing. It's
exactly.
Okay. We're all different. Yeah. We all have different gifts. So,
there's space for everybody.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I think that I hope, and I like to hear other dietitians not being scared to volunteer. I kind of feel like in our profession, we don't have time, or we don't want to do it, or we don't know what the heck we're doing. So we just don't even inquire. So I think it's good to know somebody like you that if anybody has a question about volunteering, reach out to Lisa because she will tell you all about it and be real about it.
Yeah, that's true. It's true.
Because I think that they don't tell you. I was president of Iowa, and they just don't tell you like the emails and all the things that are involved. But I would never not want to do it because I'd feel bad if I didn't do it and say no, then because I was scared.
Right. Well, and I think that, and maybe this is just because I'm getting older. I just kind of feel like, why not? And I feel like that with almost any position that I take on or any kind of work that I do is it's sort of a little challenge. And I even remember when I mean, maybe I'm just weird. I remember passing my exam and having my job and then all of a sudden going, well, now what do I do? You know, I think I just had always been used to just kind of jumping a hurdle that I'm just one of those people. I just kind of need something new to work on. And maybe it's just ADHD. I don't know, you know, and that's entirely possible, you know, but
could be a little of both.
Could be a little of both. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who knows?
Well, I think it's great that you say yes and you kind of say what's next, because I think you need to in our profession, and you need to do different things to kind of keep you passionate about where you fit. Otherwise, I think that's why people kind of quit dietetics. They're like, oh, well, I don't want to be a dietitian anymore.
Yeah. And I think people think that the only thing that they can do is medical nutrition therapy, but I think there's so many other really cool areas you can work in. I mean, you work in retail, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. I think retail nutrition's awesome. I mean, I did a little bit of consulting for Kroger, and I really enjoyed it. It was fun to be in the store because that's where people shop, and that's where you can teach people how to meal plan and how to read labels and, you know, how not to fall for different fad diets or whatever it is. So there's just so many different areas that it just keeps changing, which is great.
And if you don't know, if you can't find it, then just create it, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Make it happen.
And I knew, like, and this sounds stupid, but I thought with my shirts, if I don't do it and somebody else does, I'm going to be mad at myself. So I thought, you know, what have I got to lose? Well, money, you know, but
yeah,
I don't know. There's that. And I certainly drive my husband a little crazy with it now because he's been doing my graphics, and he helps me set up my tent and, you know, the table and the whole 9 yards, and has to give me bathroom breaks. And so, you know, I try not to overload him too much, but it's kind of become this like little family affair. You know, my kids will tell me which shirts they want for, you know, a gift for their friend, or, you know, Mommy, can you get me this sweatshirt? I really like this one. It's, you know, it's just, they're used to it. They shoot me down when it's a stupid idea too. So they're a good sounding board.
It's kind of like your legacy. Like people that have it will always remember it.
I hope so.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think all the things that you are doing is amazing, and how you're juggling it all is amazing too. I think that that's one thing when you do all these different things, like you said, it's hard to juggle everything at one time, but you make it seem seamless.
Nah. Some days are better than others. I mean, you know, I need to kind of step back sometimes and just breathe. And that's hard for me because I've always been, like I said, I'm just sort of a jackrabbit personality. I don't sit still for long. And I think that's why the ICU worked for me for a long time, because it was dynamic. You know, you saw stuff change pretty rapidly, but, I don't think I could sit in an office full time. And I think that was one of the reasons I didn't pursue insurance for very long. Because I was like, you know what, if I'm going to do this, like, I'm really going to like be this provider and I'm going to do this 24/7. Okay, let's do it. But I don't want to do that. I didn't really want to be in office that much. So it suits my personality fine to have a couple clients, you know, 5 clients a week. That's totally fine. You know, then I can have time to do other stuff.
Yeah. And if you're creative like you are, it's good to have that creative time too. I think you need that time to like write and to like find that creative side and not just be dietitian on all the time.
Right. Yeah. And it's funny. That was the one thing I really did miss about leaving, my regular job is I'm a card carrying extrovert. So being alone all the time is weird, and I think that's why I'm probably online a lot. And so I just kind of have to back up and say, okay, I need some quiet time. I got to shut down the Facebook. It's totally fine, but it is kind of, it can be isolating in private practice unless you're in now I'm in like where I rent space is kind of cool because there's a lot of nonprofits and there's a lot of people around and there's a kitchen in the middle and it's just a really, it's a really nice community space versus just being in a small office and not really seeing a lot of people. Like for a couple of years, I was in a gym, like inside, like I had a little small office inside a gym and all the personal trainers would kind of hang out and talk about their keto diet and whatever. And I'd be in a corner, like thinking to myself, I can't take it, And so it was just dumb luck. I found a better office.
Well, that's good. There's a lot of those community kind of spaces popping up that are like more friendly and social and have like nice office space that you can kind of, even talk to other people that are in similar places as you. Yeah.
Well, and right now I rent space with a pediatric dietitian. So she has the office a couple days a week, and then I have the office the other days of the week. And we just, we're not really in there at the same time because we both just use it for consulting with clients. But every now and then, we'll see each other. We're like, hey, what's going on with you?
Yeah. Neat.
So I think that's it's a good balance.
Well, you keep balancing it like you are. You're doing it like a rock star, sister.
Aw, you're too sweet.
Oh, well, I just know what it's like. I just know what it's like to be president too. And that's a lot. That takes a lot of your free time. So wish you all the luck to manage all those emails.
Oh, it's just starting, but I'll get through it. I got a lot of great help. I have a lot of great help. Trust me.
That's
my board's awesome. Yeah, I'm excited.
Very good. Good. Yeah. So will you be at Fancy this year then?
I will. How about you?
I will be there too. So we'll have to find each other. I'm working on maybe putting together like a meetup thing with podcast people. So
very cool.
I will keep you updated that we can maybe get together.
Very nice. I would love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very cool.
Okay, well, I have to ask you the hard questions now.
Okay.
If you've listened to the podcast, you know they're coming. Sure. So why don't you share with me some of the foods that you enjoy?
I love Indian food. I love Mexican food. I love Thai food. I love anything spicy and ethnic.
What's your favorite Indian dish?
I love dal makhani, and I like chicken makhani. I like that kind of sweet, buttery. It's like a chocolate chip cookie in a bowl with curry. It's like
yum.
Okay. Yeah. So anything spicy is good.
Spicy. I like it. I love spicy food. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the bomb.
What are some beverages that you enjoy?
I love coffee. I live for getting up in the morning and having coffee. Like I will drink coffee all day long if you let me. What else? I love seltzer water. I know that's crazy, but I love lime seltzer water. It makes me feel like I'm having a cocktail when I'm not. I love cocktails. I love, I love, really good red wine. I love craft beer. Like, don't give me a light beer. I'll give it back. And yeah, that's probably my top 4, I think.
Nice. Do you have a favorite color or colors?
I love anything bright. I love turquoise. I love red. Probably red's my favorite color. I love red.
Red's. That's my favorite too. I knew
Nice.
we were connected.
I know we're connected between the cats and the red. Come on.
Yes. And absolutely. Do you have a favorite scent or a favorite smell?
Ooh, citrus. I love lemon. So I love anything that smells like lemon or like Crabtree and Evelyn lemon related stuff or anything orange or anything grapefruit. Yeah, I love citrus.
Smells so clean. I love citrus too.
Yeah, it does. I don't like vanilla. That makes me want to eat a Cinnabon.
Yeah, it makes you hungry.
Yeah, it makes me hungry. So like, I love those like big giant bars of soap that you get at TJ Maxx that are like lemon or something.
Yes.
That's like the best treat. Yes, love that.
Oh my gosh, I love TJ Maxx. That's the best.
It is, totally.
And what brings you joy in life, Lisa?
What brings me joy in life? Seeing my kids laugh. Like, I know that sounds super sappy, but my kids bring me a lot of joy. My cat is hilarious. I'm such a cat person. And selling my t-shirts. I mean, I don't know. It sounds really silly. I have literally thought of just, maybe that's what I should just, like when I get old and I'm too old to counsel people anymore, I think I'm just going to hang up a shingle somewhere and sell my shirts. I know that's weird, but it's kind of fun.
Not at all. Now, do you have 2 daughters?
I have 2 daughters. My older turns 16 tomorrow. She is a lot like her dad. She's really introverted, but she's got a really dry, sarcastic sense of humor like me. So we all get along.
Nice.
And then my younger daughter will be 14 in December, and she's from Guatemala, and she's just this little adorable cocoa bean. She's awesome. So,
Aww.
Yeah, they're fun. It's pretty interesting. Yeah, they're my bunnies.
Sounds like a fun house. It sounds like a fun house. And then you got Snickers, which is your kitty cat.
And then I got Snickers. Yes, yes, yes. God love her. They bought her like some jangly collar the other day. I'm like, it was bright blue with, I don't know. It was hilarious. So that poor
funny.
cat. She gets tormented. Yeah, she's tormented, but we love her. Yeah, it's good.
She's a good Catterday.
She is. Totally great Saturday.
Well, thank you so much for sharing just your journey so far. And I hope that we can connect in person in October.
Yes.
And
thank you.
I just look forward to continuing to follow all your wonderful things you're doing.
Aw, thanks. You've been awesome. And I need to pick your brain because it feels so weird to have a one-sided conversation.
You're not the only person that says that.
I know, but I'm like, I want to talk to Ann Elizabeth more, but I don't want to take up a whole night. So we'll have to have a coffee or a glass of wine or tea or whatever your beverage choice is.
All 3? Can we have like all 3, 4, whatever it is?
Awesome. Yeah, that's perfect.
I love talking with Lisa. I think it's interesting that she's been a dietitian for 30 years, which is more than half of her life. And she's experienced so many different things as a dietitian, but she still keeps continuing on and trying new things and navigating her own business. She also does a great job by volunteering for her state affiliate, which I think that's something that we all should do once in our lifetime. I know I've said that before, but she does keep bringing it up as something to be a part of your career. And I think that's very important for all of us to try out. I'm going to head over and go order my cherry shirt of hers. It's so cute as we speak. So make sure to check out her shop at soundbitesnutrition.com. You can find the link in the show notes as well. My website, AnnElizabethRD.com, is where you can read my latest Embrace the Hell Yeah blog post, as well as all my previous podcast show notes and links to things we talked about during all my conversations with these great nutrition experts. My book is also available to purchase on my website, and there are now 15 CEUs approved for self-study through the CDR, which is very exciting. And you can purchase this on the website as well. I hope we can connect more on social media by finding me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest at AnnElizabethRD. Remember to be great always, find the joy in each day, and to start a conversation that truly matters.